It's been exactly 174 days since my best friend went to live with the Lord. And ever since that day, I have had a sort of heaviness in my heart about just encouraging or even urging the people around me to care about their grandparents. And I know it's very easy to say, yes, I care about my parents, my family, or even my grandparents, but we all know it's another thing to actually make those words, turn into actions. I've actually tried filming this video a few times. The first time was way too long. The third or fourth time was way too short. And I just want to tell you guys what's on my heart. And that's I don't want to say that we're not caring for our grandparents, because I'm sure that there are a lot of people who do, and they're doing a great job. I feel like we don't realize how abandoned some older people are until we get to the point where I got, that my family and I had to visit many elderly homes, many assisted living facilities, many rehab centers, many hospitals, where you will literally see an older person completely alone, just fending for themselves, and some of them have no recognition of the state that they're in because of serious things like Alzheimer's, dementia, so many others, and they're helpless. And I understand that there are many nurses and doctors and people who work in those facilities that are doing the best that they can to attend to all of them, but there's just so many, and there are a handful of other people who don't really take the best care of these elderly people, and it breaks my heart. It really does, because that's not fair, and if there was a solution to all the horrible things that happen in the world, they happen every single day, and there's really no solution outside of Christ. But if there was a solution that, humanly speaking, we can, bring forth, I think it would be that us as young people with strength and energy still in us, we need to go ahead and do our part in at least our circle, in the community around us. It's complicated when it comes to things like this, because we're talking about another life, we're talking about another human being, and some of them don't want to be helped, but the majority do. They're not getting that help, either because their family isn't around, or they're busy, which, it's understandable, but at the same time, it's not. That's your family, that's your blood. And then there's a whole other handful of elderly persons who don't have family at all. Either they came from another country, or their family left, or they just never had somebody to be with all of their lives. They were just on their own, and it's perfectly normal, and it happens more than we can imagine. And those people need someone to become, a familiar face. They need to feel like they are loved. They need to feel like they are taken care of. And yes, it's one thing to have people who their job description is to take care of you, and there's another thing to have somebody who out of the goodness of their heart just goes over to visit you. So I don't expect for this to lie as heavy on anyone's heart as it has on mine and my family. But if you do have the time and the energy and just the care, I definitely want to challenge you and encourage you and everyone to take some time apart and go visit either your family members who are older. Doesn't necessarily have to be your immediate grandparents, although that's almost, it should be a given that you should. But just older people in your life, maybe from your church, maybe from your friends' families, or just from work. If you have somebody around you, although we should be caring for everyone, if you have someone around you who's older, pay close attention to them and their needs, because sometimes we won't even realize that they have so many needs and no one to help them. I thankfully was able to give my grandfather the best that I could. My family did a phenomenal job, and so many beautiful friends of mine took so much time out of their personal schedules. They gave so much love and energy to my grandfather, especially in times where I was either working or just not around. They helped my family and I in that sense, and it's just so beautiful, and I want to thank each and every one of you guys who did. I love you guys so much, and I'll never be able to repay you guys for that. And I'm thankful that I was able to be there with my grandfather, and I truly am trying every day to continue to be there for my grandmother, who is still here with us. Thankfully, she's still really strong and youthful. My grandfather, he, for those of you guys who know him, I'm sorry to have repeated the story so many times, but for those who don't, my grandfather was honestly the strongest man, hardest worker that I have ever encountered in my life. And there are a lot of really awesome men around me that have really shown me what it is to be a real man, but my grandfather, like, overpasses all of them. And of course, as a human being, he made mistakes and stuff. I didn't get to see a lot of them, but he met the Lord when he was pretty grown. This was before I was born. And he he literally dedicated himself to the Lord. From that moment on, he met my grandmother. They worked together till their last breath. My grandmother, my dad's mom, actually passed about 30 years ago. I'm not mistaken. And my grandfather, her husband, passed only 5 months ago. So he was by himself for that long. He had my family and I, but in regards to his wife, he was widowed for that long. He never met with anyone else. He had zero intention of it either. He was completely faithful, and he was completely dedicated to the Lord and the ministry, but also to us, us being my family and I. And I think it would be completely unfair for us to have abandoned him. And I'm thankful that we had the opportunity to take care of him and not leave him on his own. But I can't help but think of all the other older people who just have absolutely no one. And I don't mean to make this video so long, but I just don't want to ever forget the responsibility that I have as a young person to take care of the gray people around me. And today, as I mentioned earlier in the video, it's been 174 days. But today's also June 4th, which would have been my grandfather's 90th birthday. The Lord really did elongate his life so much. 90 years. I can't help but think of how merciful God is and how faithful he is to have held my grandfather in so many ways. Like, the greatest of all the beautiful examples that my grandfather gave me is that he never stopped praising the Lord. He never stopped praying, and he was just always so full of love for the Lord. And although he wasn't fully correct in his mind, like he had dementia and Alzheimer's, still he prayed, still he said Gloria a Dios every single day. And it just makes me think, me myself, I'm thankfully, thank the Lord, I have my mind intact. And I have to ask myself, am I praising the Lord like that? Am I speaking to the Lord every moment of every day as he did? And that is honestly the greatest example anyone has ever given me. And I'm so thankful for him. I'm thankful for my family, who has also given me that example. And I could go on and on talking about him and his beautiful life story, but I don't want to veer away from the ultimate message that I want to send to whoever is listening, which is consider your grandparents. Think about them. Whenever you eat, please think, have my grandparents eaten? Have they had their medicine? Have they taken a walk? Have they been told that they're loved today? Because as much as we need it, they need it too, and sometimes even more. Um, think about them, love on them. If you don't have one of your own, like I mentioned earlier, there are so many older people who need a familiar face. So I want to encourage you to do that. Give them a call if you can't go visit, and if you can go visit, go for at least a few minutes. That means the world to them, and help them, in any way that you can. And I feel like I've missed so many key points that I wanted to express, but in reality, it's as simple as keep them on your mind and show them how you care. Thank you guys for listening. If you have any questions, you need any suggestions or ideas on how you can, make your grandparents feel extra loved. We have a lot of pretty cool ideas that we did ourselves as a family. If you want to talk about your experience, I'm more than willing to listen. If you'd like to pray, I'm more than willing to pray with you. And if you are mourning because you've recently, or even a long time ago, lost a family member or someone who's dear to you, I don't even want to say that I feel you, because every single experience is different and none can be compared to the other. But I do know that the Lord understands and knows exactly how you feel, and He wants to heal you, and He wants to be with you, and He wants to console you. So seek Him, ask Him for help, ask Him to hold you throughout your time of grief, but to also bring you out of it and be able to live joyfully and have hope. I didn't mean, again, to make this so long or even sad, because in reality I want it to be an encouraging message, an uplifting one. If you haven't done your part yet, you still have a chance. Please go for it. Okay? I love you guys and thank you for listening.